Tonight, the hard work of volunteers recognised through the Order of Australia. Moree's Aboriginal community marches against inequality. Liverpool Plains youth use a concert to call for a stop to future coal mining. And a wet week ahead as kids across New South Wales get ready to return to school.
This is Prime 7 News at 6 with Madeleine Collingard.
Good evening. Australia Day is about celebrating the things which make our country great. Volunteering is at the heart of most communities, with some local hard workers recognised through the Order of Australia.
It doesn't matter how big or little our towns are, individually they're unique. This year's Order of Australia medalists are symbols of why that's the case. Tamworth's Garnet Wood has spent a lifetime in community health. His volunteer work with Rotary's Bowel Scan program helping save lives.
We can get people to think about their health, particularly bowel cancer, before any symptoms appears.
As times change, our focus has shifted to protecting the environment. Armidale's Kathleen Ray has dedicated her retirement to conservation, working with farmers to create wildlife corridors.
Giving them grants to fence off their wildlife habitat, the native remnants that were left, to plant connections between them.
For many who work in local government, it can often be a thankless task. Bob Tremaine's love for the community of Warialda and the Guida Shire saw him dedicate 34 years to council.
I found it fairly easy to represent the people here, around Warialda, Coolatai, North Star, Cropper Creek, Gravesend, etc. because most of the time they help themselves.
Then there are those who live only to see their small communities progress. Nundle's Charles May is on every committee imaginable, making sure his town has the best infrastructure, health and emergency services around.
It means a lot to see that these services are acquired by a community and the community themselves get benefit from all of those things that the varying committees that we achieve throughout our life.
Great people, the builders of an even greater region. Chris Wall, Prime 7 News.
The highest honour a rural fire service man or woman can receive has been bestowed to a member of the Walla Bushfire Brigade. Bob Pownell has been awarded the Australian Fire Service Medal after more than 50 years' service. He says volunteering is second nature for all Australians.
It's just one of those things that Australians do. They're volunteers, and I've learned a lot over the years, and if I can impart my knowledge onto other people and help them understand, get a bit of experience, well, that's one day I can then retire.
Australia Day celebrations have been enjoyed all over the region, and for many it was a day of firsts. Others mark the occasion by doing what they love for the last time.
In true Aussie fashion, families took a swing this Australia Day, hitting their celebrations out of the park, but others chose to dive right in, taking full advantage of this year's soaring temperatures.
Spending Australia Day with my friends, just having a barbecue and some company and just having a slip and slide.
For some, it was all about the kids. Even if they're at war, others at peace celebrating their very first Australia Day.
All the families in the street are getting together, just a bit of a water fight and barbecue later this afternoon.
Things have been heating up on the barbecue front too. Tamworth's Mayor says it's a day to appreciate all of our basic freedoms.
I think it gives us that opportunity to celebrate and recognise that we do have such a great democracy here, and we do have freedom of speech and so many of those basic fundamentals that maybe we take for granted a little.
Tamworth's Australia Day civic ceremony saw pillars of the community honoured for the first time. Joy Ballard declared the city's Citizen of the Year. Armidelle's ceremony just as eventful. Those who were once visitors now welcomed as Australians. But not everyone was celebrating a first. Tamworth's own town crier retiring after 14 years today, putting his bell down for the very last time.
We now cross live to reporter Rochelle Murdoch at Bicentennial Park in Tamworth. And Rochelle, celebrations are continuing this evening.
That's right, Madeleine. It's a mixed bag down here with hundreds still keen to keep their Australia Day celebrations going. Families are down here having picnics, there's a jumping castle and even a life-size chessboard to keep the kids entertained. Live music has been playing for around the past hour and Council will be putting on a special fireworks display at around 9 o'clock.
Thanks, Rochelle. Rochelle Murdoch there, partying on at Bicentennial Park. For many Australians, today is an opportunity to celebrate the cultures that make this nation great. But for many in Australia's oldest culture, it's a reminder of what they've lost. Reporter William Kelly speaks with a group of Indigenous Australians for whom today is a time of solemn remembrance.
Australia Day commemorates all the great achievements of our wide open land, but there's shadows in Australia's past which shouldn't be celebrated.
There was a massacre just outside of Moree in a place called Waterloo Creek. And today we'd like to honour those people that lost those lives.
178 years to the day, preparations are underway to commemorate the potentially hundreds of lives lost. It's part of what makes today such a conflicting time for many Moree locals, particularly celebrating it on the day the British came to Australia.
It's like rubbing salt into the wounds of the Indigenous Australia. I mean, this is the day, this marks the day that our lifestyle, our law, our culture was taken from us.
Today, the Gamilaraay people celebrated their Australia Day with boomerang construction and traditional face painting.
We're encouraging people that our culture is the thing that helps us stay grounded.
The intent isn't to separate themselves from the rest of Australia, but to draw attention to where there are still inequalities.
Sovereignty is a really big issue. I don't think realistically we can come together because people just don't feel like, Aboriginal people don't feel like they've got any human rights or social justice.
Because Australia is at its best when it brings us together, let's hope in future these marches won't be necessary. William Kelly, Prime 7 News.
Liverpool Plains youth have again taken to the stage to call for a stop to mining in the fertile farming area. Today, farmers and protesters raise their voices not in anger, but in song at Breeze's Concert for Country.
I come from a land down under.
They're celebrating the land they live on, all while putting up a hard fight to protect it. In a stance against mining, hundreds gathered at Breeze's town hall, sending their message loud and clear out across the plains.
We will not tolerate a mine right here.
In front of a crowd of keen supporters, local Aboriginal man Mitchum Need kicked off the day's event.
So I just want to acknowledge our ancestors, past and present.
Knitting nanas travelled from Lismore, others came from just up the road. Familiar faces made their presence known, singing from the heart.
Where you from?
It's from every socio-economic group, every cultural group. It's all Australians that are aware of the plight of this town, but not just this town, the vision for Australia as well.
He says that his job as a singer-songwriter is to sing up the land and its people, and that's what he's doing today. He's singing us up, he's inspiring us for our fight ahead.
Younger generations will inherit the land, so Australia Day was a perfect excuse for this family.
It's not that far to travel for a fantastic day out and just to enjoy the scenery and family and picnic and everything, so it's great.
As a coal train rolled past the day's festivities, it did nothing but stir the crowd to continue to mount pressure on the government.
I reckon if we can, build our numbers enough, he will stop this mine. He has the power to, and we definitely want him to.
Eloise Sawyer, Prime 7 News.
Police have renewed their appeal for help to find missing North Coast man John Shaw. It's been a month now since Mr Shaw disappeared after his car was found overturned on the side of the Oxley Highway on Boxing Day. Items of clothing belonging to Mr Shaw were found 25 kilometres west of the crash site near Myrtle Scrub Road on New Year's Eve, but a large-scale search involving Polair, sniffer dogs and SES has failed to locate the 45-year-old. Police hold grave fears for his welfare as he suffers a medical condition. If anyone has any information that could assist police, they're urged to call Crime Stoppers. Now it's time for a check of today's weather. Let's take a look at the maps. In the 24 hours to 9 a.m. this morning, we did see some decent rainfalls in some centres, although that rain and storm activity was really isolated. Take this, for example, Guyra, 40 millimetres of rain recorded in the 24 hours to 9 a.m. this morning, but just east of Guyra, up to 90 millimetres of rain. Armidale picked up 27 millimetres. Let's zoom in now and take a look at what happened with temperatures today. Tamworth, 32 degrees today, a top of 33 degrees in Gunnedah. Moree made it to 33, which is just a little shy of average for this time of year. Quite warm overnight though, Moree dropping down to 21 and Glendinis made it to 25 degrees. Still to come in Prime 7 News, the two men hopeful of becoming leader of the National Party throw their support behind Warren Truss, and the newest members of our community come together to celebrate Australia Day.
And at 6:30 tonight, spectacular celebrations on Sydney Harbour as Australians mark our National Day in style. Former Army Chief David Morrison recognised for his tough stance on sexism, and how a police pursuit ended with a rescue from a backyard swimming pool. All those stories and plenty more. Join us 6:30 tonight.
Stay in touch 24/7 with Prime 7 News.
When we think of Australia Day, we often think about our country's history and the outstanding Australians recognised for their contribution to the country. But one academic says many Aussies aren't so focused on reflecting.
Australia Day may mark the anniversary of the arrival of the First Fleet, but how reflective do Aussies like to get?
I think there's a large part of the population that quite understandably still sees Australia Day as a day off.
Professor James Curran from the University of Sydney says Australians generally take a laid-back approach to the day.
I think Australians have always worn their patriotism fairly lightly on their sleeves, and I think that's a good thing.
Professor Curran says that's come about because of our changing national identity.
In the past, Australians did reflect a lot about their identity, but that was when they defined themselves as white and British, and that's no longer relevant.
Professor Curran is also an expert in US studies. He says Australians celebrate their National Day differently to the way Americans do on the 4th of July.
Americans have a very powerful sense of their own nationalism that comes out of the Revolution and comes out of rejecting Britain as the mother country. And that is in the DNA of Americans.
But that doesn't mean we're not a proud bunch. Ask anyone here taking part in Australia Day festivities.
It's being true to who we are. We're really, Aussies are great people, and so are all the people who come to Australia to live.
Today is the Aussies' turn to have their wonderful day and their time to shine.
This man says we can celebrate as well as the Irish on St Patrick's Day.
Well, being Irish, I was very keen to be here for Australia Day and see how it would compare with St Patrick's Day in Ireland.
And how does it compare?
Oh, it's magnificent.
Most Aussies would likely agree. Kathleen Curry, Prime 7 News.
And while we're dealing with all things national, how about our national flag? A Sydney academic asked Australians a week ago to vote on a new flag. Dr Benjamin Jones of the Western Sydney Uni got more than 8,000 responses, of which 6,400 voters voted for a new flag. He offered 6 alternative flag choices. The Southern Horizon flag got 31% of the vote, while the Reconciliation flag received 28% of the vote. Dr Jones believes the responses to his survey show we do need a national vote on a new flag. We still call Australia home, but for many today, it will be the first time they're able to do so. Thousands of new citizens have been welcomed all over the country, Tamworth with 11 of its own.
It's a privilege to call Australia home. That's why 11 people are proud as punch to call themselves citizens today. Handshakes were had and paper was passed at Tamworth's Australia Day civic ceremony. But it's the promise of opportunity that means the most to this family.
It's really good, to go to uni and
work opportunities and just, yeah, be free, basically.
Be safe.
Yeah,
Be
just
safe.
be able to do whatever you want.
They've spent the last 5 years in Tamworth, believing the city's a welcome breath of fresh air.
Being able to stay home with the doors unlocked, basically. It's more peaceful, and because we're from South Africa and it's not going that great at the moment.
Tamworth prides itself on being a multicultural city. Many believe the melting pot is set to grow.
The amazing thing is we used to have one a year. Now they seem to be about half a dozen a year of these ceremonies, and the people, such a variety of countries they come from.
Tamworth has citizenship ceremonies every 8 weeks, but today new citizens felt especially patriotic.
I hope they get involved in our community. We'll encourage them to do that. I met them this morning and we talked about that.
Rochelle Murdoch, Prime 7 News.
There's few things more traditionally Australian than beer and lamb on Australia Day. These hard-working butchers in Uralla are working on the cutting edge of meat production to turn the two loves into one. Lamb is being fed with hops from a local brewery to give it an extra tang. It's an idea they've been working on for a year and were surprised to find the sheep love it too.
The pale ale, they like it a lot more than the other ones, but they do eat it all. But the pale ale is just unbelievable. They'll eat it a day earlier than the rest of it, yeah.
Dale's Downtown Meats is closed today, but after selling out of a week's stock in just 12 hours, expect the sodden lamb to make a return. Coming up next in sport, a prelude to the Walker Cup Carnival hits the track in Armidale, and efforts begin to set a new thong throwing world record. The Armidale Jockey Club held races today for two very good reasons: to support a family desperately in need and to host the final qualifier for the upcoming Walker Cup.
Hundreds turned out today for a charity fun day at the Armidale Racecourse. The 7-race tab event was sure to draw a crowd, a chance for trainers to secure a spot in the Walker Cup and for the town to show their support to the Mickett's family, who lost their daughter just before Christmas.
She was only 17, she died from complications with leukaemia, and she's also an identical twin as well, so yeah, it's very, very, very hard on the family, so we're just doing our bit to help them out.
It was a very successful day for jockey Peter Graham, who picked up 3 consecutive wins. That's 30 wins so far in 2016. The final race today is also a qualifier for the Walker Cup next Friday. It's the last chance for a lot of local trainers to secure a spot in the race and avoid relying on the ballot.
It's a good idea having a race where you can't get balloted out of the Cup, so yeah, if she could win it, that puts us straight in, which would be great.
Scone trainer Greg Bennett stole the show with 2 wins and 2 third places for the day. His horse Pro Console finished clear of the field in race 7 to secure a spot in the Walker Cup.
Pro-Consul races away, leads all the way on the last from San Diego.
Sam Rains, Prime 7 News.
Australian cricket legend Glenn McGrath has paid tribute to Bendemeer's Josh Hazlewood, saying he's making his own place in the national team. The former fast bowler was in Tamworth over the weekend. Hazlewood has been labelled the next McGrath by commentators after a strong summer in the Australian squad. Glenn says he's honoured by the comparison but agrees the boy from Bendy is his own player.
He's his own man. I think as he goes on, he'll be remembered for what he's done. At the moment, it's always going to be those comparisons there, but he's his own man, and I'm really proud of what he's done.
There's a new world record in the sport of thong throwing. Armidale gathered today to kick off their pluggers in search of the most people to throw a thong at the same time. To break the record, they needed 250 people to participate.
The only prerequisite is that we stand behind a line and the thongs must cover more than 1 metre. So we're going to line them all up and hopefully smash a world record.
They smashed the record by over 150 people. The new world record stands at 401 thong throwers. And that's today's sport. Coming up next here on Prime 7 News, I'll be back with your local weather forecast. Now it's time for the weather. Let's take a look at the maps. As we move through the next 24 hours, again, there is a very high chance that we will see rain and storm activity across our region. As you can see here, much of New South Wales is expecting to see rain and storms as we head through our Wednesday. Now, across our region, we are going to see more wet weather, particularly on Thursday as well. In fact, on Thursday is when we're expecting to see the heaviest falls. Moree, 29 degrees on the way tomorrow, 28 in Narrabri. So these tops are all a little bit cooler than what we had today. Moree today, 33 degrees, and with a top of 29 degrees in Moree, that's around 5 degrees below average for January. Tamworth, 27, Gunnedah, 27, Corindai, 27, and Glen Innes tomorrow is only expecting to see a top of 21 degrees. Now, tomorrow we could see up to 20 millimetres of rain. On Thursday, we could see isolated pockets of rain of up to 40 or even 50 millimetres. 26 degrees in Tamworth, so that is well below average for this time of year. In fact, that's 7 degrees below average for January. Heavy falls later in the afternoon, moving out towards Inverell and Glen Innes. On Friday, and to wrap up the working week, it should become a little bit warmer. We are expecting to see more rain and thunderstorm activity, particularly during the morning. By the afternoon, it should start to fine up. Sunrise tomorrow morning is at 6:14, and quickly now to the forecast as we head across our Saturday and Sunday, and that rain is going to ease up for the weekend. Temperatures hovering around that 30-degree mark. And that's your local news for tonight. Thanks for your company. You can have your say on tonight's stories on Facebook and see tonight's bulletin in full online. Just search YouTube for Prime 7 Northwest. Now, Prime 7 News at 6:30 with Daniel Gibson.